It's almost impossible to find clear and illuminating material on the subject of sacred mathematics. By this I mean mathematics approached, as it was in the ancient world and before the modern era certainly, as a set of signs that signify, that reveal something of the divine or transcendent nature of reality. In modern maths, numbers are merely quantities, but the habit of the ancient mind, or the traditional mind more broadly, is to ascribe qualities to numbers, or rather to discern the qualities of numbers from their inherent properties and behaviour. This, for want of a better word, is sacred rather than profane maths. Simply put, a number has both a quality and a quantity. It has a sacred and a profane dimension, the qualitative being the sacred, revealing the divine, the immutable, the eternal, the innate. Needless to say, in our own times, this has all degenerated into New Age mush, and in the scientific narrative, it all becomes a type of number superstition. It is very hard to find an account of this approach to maths that is not distorted by our contemporary lens. Worse, it all gets mixed up in so-called new maths, the dazzling world of fractals and non-Euclidean geometry and so forth, which is eagerly acquired by New Agers and recklessly blended with traditional maths in completely unintelligent ways. So let's start at the start. In order to have a proper acquaintance with this ancient or traditional or sacred maths, we're actually looking at Pythagorean maths here, to be exact. We need to go back to kindergarten. Let's start at the start, and the place to start is basic arithmetic. It is necessary to be well schooled in the basics to have a firm grasp of the foundations. We were all schooled in modern numeracy from the ground up. To learn ancient numeracy requires beginning again. It is really a matter of learning a different mode of numeracy. To start at the start, then, is to start with unity, 1, not the number 1, because 1 is not a number in this system. This is the first thing to understand. 1 is just unity. Neither is it odd or even. It is just unity. Its principal characteristic is that it is indivisible. In this system, you cannot divide 1. There are therefore no fractions. So we see from the outset how this numeracy differs from the one we learnt as children. The idea of fractions was introduced to us very early, if not from the outset, because in modern maths you can divide 1. It is a number and it can be divided. Then we learn all about fractions. But in traditional maths, specifically in Pythagorean arithmetic, our fullest surviving system of traditional maths, but it's much more widespread than the Pythagoreans, it is almost universal. Unity is not a number, but the root and resolution of all number, and it is pristine, inviolable, and indivisible. It is, that is to say, the mathematical equivalent to God, or God expressed in maths. If God was a mathematical entity, he would be 1, unity itself. He is not a number among other numbers. He is before, beyond, and outside of number altogether. Unity is creative, it generates or emanates all number, but is not a number itself, and it is indivisible. Note that we do not start with 0. As soon as you start with 0, numbers become quantities. There is no 0 in this system. There is no such notion, or rather, what is later in other contexts designated as 0 is actually a property of unity, namely numberlessness. The introduction of 0 has a pernicious effect. There is no 0 in this system. So to recap, 1 is not a number, 1 is indivisible, there are no fractions, and there is no 0. Those are the rules. This system starts when we posit unity. This unity is more like a philosophical or even a theological conception than it is a number in the modern sense. To learn this mathematics, the first step must always be a meditation upon unity. Unity is the central, pivotal concept. Arithmetic itself is, as it were, a meditation upon unity and its numerical manifestations, its numerical developments. For number is derived from unity, Again, unity is not a number but the root and resolution of all number. The firmer you grasp this, the better. Don't assume that it is easily grasped. Even an adequate understanding of unity is hard won. So, the number 2 is the beginning of number. 2 is the first number. Unity is not a number. 2 is. So number first manifests as two-ness. Before 2, there is no number. How the 2 arises out of the 1, when the 1 is indivisible, becomes the question. But to divide is to halve. 2 is not half of 1. No fractions. If we could divide 1, as we can in modern maths, we have not 2, but 1/2, and 2 halves isn't 2. As quantities go, 2 is 2 ones. 2 is 2 times 1. 1 is 1/2 plus 1/2. No fractions. So instead of dividing, 1 projects. So you must appreciate the 2 arises from unity through generation, or more exactly emanation. This means that unity is all productive, but, like God, inexhaustible. 2 comes from unity, but not by division, and without in any way compromising unity itself. A mythological device used to try to describe this is parthenogenesis, spontaneous creation without reproduction. This way of doing maths invites us to mythologize, to make stories, to anthropomorphize. We shouldn't be afraid to do so. Instead, we ought to revel in productive comparisons. We should always be searching for metaphors to help explain things. This is worth underlining at this point. Maths here and Pythagorean arithmetic is a meditative, a contemplative art. It is not a science in the modern sense. In modern sciences, you close off the mythological at every turn, systematically eliminate it. In modern maths, you have to sterilize it from any mythological infections. When doing ancient maths, though, it is in an entirely different enterprise. The contemplation of number is supposed to remind us of other things: myth, stories, natural phenomena, human behavior. Numbers are a window into an entire created cosmos in this approach. If you were serious about this, you would spend weeks, months, lifetimes considering how the 2 arises out of the 1, and by extension then the nature of duality. For 2 is not a quantity either, or only in its profane aspect. 2 rather is duality itself, as 1 is unity itself. Numbers again are qualities. Unity is oneness, 2 is two-ness, and 3 is threeness, and so on. Think of numbers therefore like the Platonic forms, archetypes, paradigmata. So unity is Plato's form of forms, the one and the good, as he calls it. Our arithmetic studies are an exploration of the forms, the laws, the patterns inherent in the one and the good. Arithmetic is an extrapolation of and from the one and the good. Note that every number retains the quality of unity. It is a unity, which is to say, in this system, we have only rational whole numbers, as they are called. The series 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. There are no irrational numbers in this system. Every number is extrapolated from unity and partakes of its coherence. Think of numbers like a pantheon of gods. We are interested in their nature and their relationships. Indeed, in a base 10 system such as this, the first 10 numbers, or the first 9 plus unity, constitute, as it were, a pantheon of gods. This is how the Pythagoreans considered them, most famously arranged in the so-called Tetractys, the tetrad. This is an archetypal arrangement. It is formed by adding 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It is said that this arrangement reveals some of the most fundamental properties of number, which is to say that cosmos of archetypes extrapolated from and contained within unity. It is an image of how the many comes out of the one. The image shows us how the numbers emanate from unity. This arrangement reveals, for example, the primal character of 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 10 numbers. We'll leave aside the fact that unity isn't really a number. There are 10 numbers in the Tetractys, but you only need 4 numbers to make the 10. That is what the word Tetractys means. Tetra, 4, the tetrad. So there are 4 primal things, and everything else is extracted from or composed from those 4 things. We might notice then that this conclusion lends itself to ancient accounts of cosmic elements, the 4 elements. There is a system whereby the cosmos, the many, is made of 4 basic things: fire, air, water, and earth. In this way of doing maths, it is not improper to make a parallel between the reality of numbers and the other fourfold systems of correspondence. Number is at the root of things. There are 4 elements because the first 4 numbers are elemental, and the whole, here signified by the 10, is made entirely of those 4 things. Similarly, casting further afield, we might draw upon systems of 4 levels of reality, such as we find, say, in the Jewish Kabbalah. The Tetractys can be seen as a pyramid, a hierarchy consisting of 4 levels, 4 layers. We might analogize this to political models, comparing unity to the king and the other numbers to lower social classes. We make see parallels from any quarter in order to better understand. The Tetractys is a framework upon which to place ideas. The Kabbalah is a similar system, also an arrangement of 10, but conceived in terms of a primal Edenic tree symbolism, 10 fruits upon a tree. Pythagorean system, the Tetractys, is more purely arithmetic. Tempting as it is, it sometimes proves treacherous to try to blend these systems. Occultism and the New Age is littered with stillborn hybrids. Usually we blend number systems at our peril, because it is their nature to be self-contained. The Tetractys teaches us importantly that a system, can constitute a cosmos, a meaningful order, which is to say, a meaningful and adequate representation of the whole, and therefore self-contained. These 10 numbers arranged in this way provide an image of the cosmos in principle. The Pythagoreans actively revered the Tetractys for this reason, although the later accounts of the antics of Pythagoras and his friends should be taken as pastiche, rather than as an account of historical events. We shouldn't take too much notice of the Pythagorean texts. Biographies of Pythagoras himself are almost entirely rubbish. The historical accounts are late and unreliable, and as a side note, we shouldn't be too swayed by Aristotle's account of the Pythagoreans either. The names given to numbers in our sources are often meaningless and silly. The textual tradition of Pythagoreanism is badly decayed and polluted with dross. The pearls are buried in the mire. It is far more important to use the Tetractys as an object of mathematical contemplation and work it out for ourselves, from a kindergarten level up. We don't know how much we don't know. Similarly, we could read a Pythagorean treatise on musical harmony, or better still, we could stretch a wire, twang it, and experiment until we've found the harmonies and heard them with our own ears. We should not be casual about the Pythagorean claim that the Tetractys is the key to the universe. It is certainly the key to Pythagorean numeracy. It is in the nature of the case, though, that almost immediately we have a large number of matters to contemplate. The Pythagoreans believed you could and should spend lifetimes contemplating the many mysteries of the Tetractys. Start with the one, understand the nature of the one, then consider in a similar way all the numbers up to 10, which is to say a full cycle of numbers, because in a sense 10 is a reiteration of 1. The Tetractys, again, is a complete cosmos. It is a simple device though, the Tetractys. You can't do complex mathematical pyrotechnics with it. It's not an amusement park. You can get a lot of intellectual titillation from fractions and irrational numbers, types of zero, multiplying things by infinity, all sorts of mathematical exotica. This mathematics is not like that. The Tetractys is just the numbers 1 to 10 set out in a philosophically pregnant arrangement. It's not a Mandelbrot set whose beauty is in the bizarre. Here we cling to that very ancient, but now much derided intuition, that the simple is the profound. Notice how 10 is a triangular number. So of course is 3. This is a very concrete system of maths. Arithmetic leads naturally and effortlessly to geometry. We can count pebbles. We can also lay them out into patterns. We can express numbers as geometrical realities and add that to our understanding of number. There are square numbers too, and pentagonal numbers. Unity, of course, is the mathematical point. Duality, then, is the line. Threeness, makes the triangle, the simplest plane figure, an enclosed space. With the number 3, there is, and we can see it visually, the development of an inside and an outside. 3 points, 3 pebbles, make a shape, a space, with an inside area. We can conclude, therefore, that the third term, the threeness, is in some way microscopic. The third term turns inwards, so to speak. It entails separation from the blank field, an internal dimension. In biology, it's called invagination. The most fundamental cosmic threeness is the system Sun, Moon and Earth, and those triangulations. The stars and the heavens are a primary area of correlation, in fact. In his dialogue, the Timaeus, Plato tells us that the stars, the heavens observable to the eye, the cycles in which we reside, are our ultimate source of number. All such things are best explored with a set of 10 pebbles. The operations are rudimentary. The challenge is to bring a depth of understanding to them founded in long contemplation. The search, in fact, is for noesis, the highest form of intelligibility, an intuition, an intellectual intuition, a glimpse of the one and the good, where you comprehend the entire system at once. This is a quest for intelligibility. The modern mathematical world expands outwards endlessly in all directions. The ancient mathematical world collapses from all directions into unity. In theory, you can discover the principles of the universe by meditating on 10 pebbles. There are now distinctions to be made in types of number. Once you have multiplicity, the matter arises of how things are related. As soon as you have duality, you have sameness and difference. 2 can only draw a line, 3 can make a shape. Duality inherent in number reminds us of the dualities inherent in nature, in the world, in the cosmos, in ourselves, wherever. For it is a principle inherent in all things, just as all things are held together by unity. This again is a type of thinking modern maths won't allow. Here we deliberately cultivate it. Cast of basic binaries enter the reckoning. Across virtually all traditions, and certainly in the Greek, the most obvious natural parallel is to two-ness is male and female. The Chinese tradition, yin and yang, dwell on this distinction in a more or less rigorously mathematical manner, building up associations in the same way. But which is which? Male and female numbers. The Pythagoreans regard odd numbers as male and even as female. So 2 is female, 3 is male. This is an important symbolism because it is then expanded, and the progress and relations of numbers is described in sexual terms, just as it is in mythological worldviews. Unity is parthenogenic, but 2 and 3 are female and male respectively, and their relationship is reproductive. Unity doesn't display this reproductive power. It expands by parthenogenesis, not interaction with another number. If you multiply something by 1, it remains itself. But if you multiply a number by 2 or 3, there is reproduction, expansion, cosmogony. Although here a distinction we discover and must contemplate is that between addition and multiplication, and therefore subtraction and division. Addition is like marriage. Multiplication is like the reproduction of offspring in these analogies. But it is very important not to get lost in a swamp of parallels and associations. Symbolic thinking is a discipline. This type of maths encourages us to build up and to test chains of association, lines of emanation. Woman is to man as 2 is to 3, as a line is to a plane, and so on. But we should stay close to the numerical structures. The metaphors are to help us get down to the principles, not dwell in the examples. The principles which are to be grasped by intellectual intuition, by noesis, which lies at the very end of rational mathematical thinking. All chains of association lead to noesis. All analogies lead to a unified vision. It soon emerges, doesn't it, that there is another special class of number of particular interest. If we play with pebbles long enough, we cannot help but notice it. The number 5 has a notable quality. Like unity, it resists division. No two numbers multiplied together equal 5, and if we try to divide 5 by another number, we cannot arrive at a whole rational result. 5 divided by 4 or 3 or 2 is irrational. This number therefore shares in the qualities of unity in ways that many other numbers do not, or it is, as we say, a prime number. These are of particular interest in sacred maths. They are numbers that express the qualities of unity. The Greeks developed a device, the sieve of Aristophanes, in the systematic quest to determine if a number is a prime or not. But it is important to understand the nature of primes and their qualities and what they signify, what it means to say they are expressions or reiterations of unity. In this pantheon of numbers, the primes are especially important. Powerful gods, veritable Olympians. The Pythagoreans called primes incomposite numbers. They have no component parts, as opposed to composite numbers. We might be reminded of the Socratic distinction in Plato's Phaedo between the soul, which is singular and incomposite, he says, and the body, which is composite and therefore corruptible and subject to decay. When we discover something about number in this method, we ask ourselves where we can find the same or similar distinction. What things in life, in nature, in the world, in creation, reflect or participate in these mathematical realities. Notice that we are in no hurry to use postulates to deduce other propositions, which is the habit of the modern mathematician. Instead, we use them as stepping stones or springboards for deeper understandings, a different type of numeracy. There are a host of other distinctions to be discovered. The number 6 is both 1 plus 2 plus 3 and 1 times 2 times 3. Its divisors are 1, 2 and 3, and these add to 6. This seemed a kind of perfection to the Greeks. 6 is a so-called perfect number. Then we discover that these are relatively rare. What is important is not to find lots of them, but to understand their perfection. There are deficient numbers. 8, for example. Its divisors are 1, 2 and 4, but 1 plus 2 plus 4 equals 7, one short of 8, deficient, short of the perfection we find in 6. We have to go beyond the Tetractys to the number 12 before we find an abundant or an excessive number, where the sum of its divisors is greater than the number itself. Curiously, abundant numbers sort of overflow, and their abundance allows them to form another cosmos, another system. The number 12 lent itself to this historically. The number 108 is abundant. We find it used as a cosmic symbol, an image of the full cycle in Buddhist and Hindu modes of prayer most commonly. We won't understand why this is so unless we understand the nature of an abundant or an excessive number. In modern maths, all of this is called number theory, mapping the various types of numbers. But it is very much a mapping, just as modern astronomy is really an astrogeography, just mapping what is out there. Notice how the modern systems are concerned with vastness, the vastly big or the vastly small, what is beyond the human scale. For us, though, it is not a mapping, but a penetration. From the outset, starting at the start, this maths is the subject of philosophical penetration. The whole point is to think philosophically about number, and equally to use number to think philosophically. A superstition is something that persists long past when it was understood. Our task is to rescue sacred maths, so-called, or philosophical numeracy, better still, from this fate. We shouldn't be too eager to move on from playing with pebbles. We were never schooled in the foundations. The Tetractys is subject to all sorts of supposedly mystical developments. You can stick a all-seeing Masonic eye over it, or add some Hebrew letters and it looks mysterious and enigmatic. But it is really just a pebble game, a kindergarten abacus, a meditation aid.